So there are people who believe that because we've got gay pride, there should be an equivalent straight pride in order to celebrate straight sexuality.
From at least what I can gather, it sounds like, oh, let's have a party and celebrate that we are straight. But I'm not sure whether the people actually understand this is not where pride comes from. Pride is not coming from, let's have a party.
No, and I think it's just ridiculous because when you think about when you think about the purpose of Pride. I mean, obviously, when Pride first started, it was a very political thing. It was it was about protesting the oppression of gay people, and it was about fighting for gay rights. So this was a political movement. Obviously, more and more, it's become less of that, and it sort of encompasses more things than just about fighting for gay rights. It represents the fight that went on before, but also now it's about celebrating where we've got to now, and then about celebrating equality and inclusiveness and promoting those values. But when you think about the whole concept of a straight pride, it's what is the premise of it? Is it just about celebrating sexuality? But you're talking about a group of people who've had all the rights that they've enjoyed, since birth. You've not had to fight for any of their rights. If you want to walk down the street holding the hands of your straight partner, you do that. You're fine. You don't have to worry about it. You've not had to worry about your marriage rights and marriage equality. You've had that from it's a birthright. All of those things you just have it. And I guess this is where I find it really difficult to understand, for making that comparison. Where does it come in?
There is no comparison. I think what most of those people also forget, that pride is a global thing. And whilst, a pride parade in London might now look much more like a big party, but then pride happens in many, many other countries, and there's so many countries around the world where there are pride parades, where people attending the parades actually are still risking getting sworn into prison, oppression, because they still don't have the same rights than gay people or LGBT plus people enjoy in the UK.
Yeah.
And I think this is totally forgotten, and I think it's an absolute ridiculous idea, because I actually think it undermines what has been achieved for the LGBT plus community, because it's kind of just making the entire idea ridiculous, of pride, saying, we have never been oppressed, and so we need to celebrate that. It doesn't make any sense.
No, but I suppose as one person who commented in the comment section on Facebook, one chap who identified himself as being straight said that he saw it as just being a celebration of sexuality. And he couldn't understand, after I responded and talked about a bit about what pride was, the meaning of pride and what sat behind it and why it was important to the LGBT community. He said he couldn't understand how a parade would, for example, spread inclusiveness. He couldn't understand how it would impact on LGBT rights, and he just couldn't get it. And I think part of the big issue is that, regardless of how far we have come and how mainstream LGBT rights have become, and the fact that, it's widely accepted, there are lots of people who are in support of that, whether straight, gay, bi, whatever, who support LGBT rights. But there are still people who just don't get it. And these people are not overtly homophobic or anything, because he didn't come across as that. And in fact, he was very empathetic in terms of the homophobia that people would have to face and the discrimination that people would come up against. And he did say that he definitely didn't support that, but what he just couldn't understand or grasp was the whole concept around gay pride as a movement, as an establishment that says discrimination will stand against that, and we are for rights that impact on the wider LGBT community. And he just couldn't get it. He just couldn't get what the premise of Pride was.
Because they just see, from my point of view, they just see it as a big party. They lack the context that actually Pride used to be a demonstration. And it used to be a demonstration which was several times violently stopped by police. It looks as they are wanting to celebrate heterosexual pride because they feel somehow discriminated against, which they are not. I wonder though whether Pride in the UK maybe actually is too much of a party now, and maybe actually misses to still transport the messages why we're actually doing that. Because when you look at the events happening, it's actually just a massive party with millions of people. But where's the political element? I think it's fading, and maybe that's the reason why, especially younger people who can't remember, just don't see anymore where that's actually coming from.
Absolutely, and I think the thing about it is that it's also become hugely commercialized. It's become a vehicle for major brands to get their name out there, and to reach an audience that perhaps otherwise they might not have reached. And so it's become a huge commercial vehicle now, rather than being, like you say, what it's the roots of what it's meant to be for. So it's not surprising that with the fact that we've sort of lost the whole political element and the real roots of it, which is about marching in solidarity with your fellow LGBT community and standing up for LGBT rights. You've lost that element to sort of become it's in the background rather than being at the front of what it all stands for. Think about the wider world. This is not just about what happens here at home, but we've got people in Chechnya, we have people in Russia, we have people in Africa who are still oppressed and facing a huge amount of discrimination. They can't have Pride in the same way that we have. For them, it's still a freedom fight. It's still a fight for equality on all fronts. And I think it's about taking a moment and actually going back to the essence of what it's about and saying, actually, this is us standing with our fellow LGBT community across the world and fighting with them and having that unified voice that says, we will not stand for discrimination. We will stand up against homophobia, and we will fight with our fellow LGBT comrades.
So Theresa May issued a long statement to Pride. I'm wondering what her DUP friends were thinking about her extremely supportive statement.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's all for show anyways, isn't it? I think the first thing I thought to myself was she probably should have just not said anything, but if she hadn't said anything, we'd have used that as a sign of her continued sort of disdain for the LGBT community. But you know what? I haven't even bothered to even listen to it. I mean, I read a few bits of it in the, like in the news and stuff, but I don't want to hear from her.
No.
It's a bit hypocritical, given not only her track record on LGBT rights, but, also the fact that, she's, she's continuously aligned herself with people who are, anti-gay rights. And that to me someone like that coming out and saying, trying to be encouraging and positive and supportive, it just feels like, lip service. It's not real, it's not genuine at all.
I just think if, inclusivity is so important for her, as she is saying, and obviously it's a major, it's a major point, isn't it? I just wonder how you can go actually into a coalition with a party which isn't. They have a long track record in anti-LGBT comments and initiatives they were driving, including blocking gay marriage in Ireland. And needless to say, considering that the Tories don't have any majority in the House of Parliament and they need those 10 votes for anything they want to do from DUP, they will have a major influence on the current government. I've seen that in Germany again and again in coalition governments. Everybody always thinks they are just a smaller party. Doesn't matter. They need their votes. So they're equally as powerful as the Tories are in these, what did I call it, support agreement, not a coalition. But, if they don't support... It
amounts to the same thing, doesn't it?
Absolutely. She barely got the Queen's speech to Parliament. She has some much more interesting or much more difficult things to do. And most importantly, if something so crucial as inclusivity is important to you as a leader, you just simply can't form any sort of working arrangement with a party which doesn't stand for it.
You're right. And what remains to be seen is how influential they will be and what issues they will choose to stand ground on. Because there will be things, I think, that they will want to stand ground on and make their mark about. And regardless of the assurances that she wants to, that she has given, I think that she's in for a nasty surprise.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we obviously know how much she sticks to her assurances or to her big words.
They're all empty promises, aren't they?
Absolutely. On a total sideline, but I think a really good example. The entire G20 meeting Merkel organized was huge focus was to increase pressure on the United States around the climate accord. And who is the only global leader who doesn't discuss this topic in her face-to-face meeting with Donald Trump? Theresa May.
Well, on the topic of Donald Trump, it's interesting you've mentioned him and Theresa May in the same sentence. Every time you mention their names, the only thing I can picture is the holding hand thing.
Absolutely.
That's the only image that I can remember. And funnily enough, she wore that same suit so many times during the general election debate that every time I saw her, all I could see was Donald Trump. I don't think that was a good move. But the point I was going to make anyway was that rumor has it that Donald Trump is now going to be coming for his state visit very, very soon. And so it's no surprise that she's not wanting to say anything that's going to upset that relationship, because the truth of the matter is that she's back in the same position she was in when she first approached the whole issue of Brexit. Just before triggering Article 50, when she went to the US and had that meeting when Donald Trump, back in January when he became president, and this was about basically going and kissing some ass to make sure that she put herself in a position where she could ask for the things that she needed to ask for.
Yeah, no, I know. We will still have Korean chicken in the UK.
Yeah, we've said that a few times. I'm hoping that it won't go that way, because I think it'd be quite horrendous, and I think that might be an argument to become vegetarian if we start having American food over here.
I think she is with her back against the wall. The negotiations with Europe start becoming very tricky. If we came to a situation where we depend on getting trade deals with countries like the US, they are sitting on the much longer side of the lever when it comes to that. Because they will know that the UK will be desperate in signing those trade agreements.
Yeah.
So they will get into those agreements what they want, because they don't need a trade agreement with the UK necessarily as much, because they have, big trade agreements with other blocks already.
And you're forgetting let's not forget who she's dealing with here. This is Donald Trump, the man who said that, at whatever cost, he's all about America first. America first. So whatever deal is being struck is going to be heavily weighed in favor of the American markets and the American economy. And, you know, regardless of what you want to say about the man, at the end of the day, you know, this is what he does. He's about making dodgy deals, and he's very good at it, and he's very good at making those deals lucrative. And, you know, this is no different. He's going to approach this as a pure business deal, and he's going to look at how can I get the most out of it in terms of what he wants to achieve for the US market.
Look, the only reason why I'm not so terribly worried about this, because I'm still absolutely convinced within the next few months there will be another general election. I can't possibly see her surviving.
Well, this is, if one thing is sure, she's going to hang on for as long as humanly possible. I am not convinced that she's going to back down as quickly as you think. She should go. There should be another general election. But I think she will fight tooth and nail to stay in charge. Last week, German Parliament legalized same-sex marriage. Whoop, whoop. And now it's been given the green light by the upper house.
Yes, but now is where the problem will start. Because it was never a question whether I would go for the upper house, because the upper house is currently controlled by the Labour side of the German political spectrum, and they were always pushing for it. So it was very clear it would pass the upper house without any issues after it cleared parliament. But now it's with the president, and the problem the president has, he basically has to sign a bill as long as he doesn't think it could be non-constitutional. Yeah, if he deems it non-constitutional, he can't sign it. Now, there have been several court cases in front of the German Constitutional Court over the last number of years, where the court defined several times that marriage, which is protected by the German Constitution, even though the Constitution doesn't say it clearly or doesn't state it, but they said that in their interpretation of the Constitution, it's protecting the marriage between a man and a woman. And this is the entire legal discussion now, whether the president can sign it, or even if he signs it, then somebody might try to actually get a case in front of the Constitutional Court to get it potentially overturned.
And you know, this is the thing that's so sad about this, is that we've obviously, Germany has had civil partnerships for a number of years now.
Yes.
But the two things that you don't have is in Germany you don't have marriage equality.
No.
And as a result of that, because of the way German law has been set up, you also can't adopt.
Exactly, because in Germany, to be able to adopt as a couple, you have to be married.
You have to be married. Whereas in comparison to the way the UK law worked, when civil partnerships were allowed in the UK, there was no restriction on adoption, and so people were allowed or had the option to adopt.
The interesting piece to it is, I think it's quite likely that the president will sign a bill and simply, in inverted commas, risk it, because there's no risk on his side, as the Constitution doesn't specifically say marriage is between a man and a woman.
But this is about the legal interpretation at the end of the day.
But then, so the interesting piece now is the way how the German Constitutional Court works is, as an individual, you can just appeal to the court if you as an individual, but only you as an individual, are discriminated against in terms of your constitutional rights. But here we talk about larger groups. So if it's about larger groups, then you can't, as an individual, then either a parliamentary majority could ask the Constitutional Court to look into the matter, or one of the 16 German states could, ask the Constitutional Court to look into it. Considering we have a general election coming up in September, I actually think neither of the two scenarios are likely to happen.
I think that it would be such a shame to get to this point and have such a massive hurdle that was so insurmountable, and then it all just fell back, it sort of falls by the way, because now you've got quite a lot of people being very hopeful about being able to do something that they perhaps have waited for a very, very long time to be able to do, they're having that right to do it is important for a lot of people. And so I hope that we don't have a situation where in a few months' time we're having this discussion and saying that actually the worst case scenario has happened and it is being opposed, and there's a massive lengthy legal challenge to have to go through before finally getting the outcome that we hope. I mean, I think that I do think that it will happen. I do think that marriage equality will happen in Germany. It's just about the timing and when.
I'm actually in two minds, because let's just say he signs it, and neither, and looking at the political agendas at the moment in Germany in terms of the general election, I don't think that any of the two options of, appealing to the court will be triggered. That might mean that most people are getting married on the basis of that bill, but then maybe 2 years later, somebody forms some sort of majority to appeal to the Constitutional Court. So,
and then puts those people's marriage status in jeopardy.
Absolutely. So I'm not sure what I think, but maybe it actually would be better if the Constitutional Court once for all clarifies that. But I think the entire discussion of why marriage wasn't legalized has why we had civil partnerships with some similar rights but not all the rights, mainly stems from two topics: religion and adoption. And adoption is a very, very emotional topic in this regard. When you read the public debate, I think there are lots of learning points to be made in Germany if you would compare that, to other European countries, including the UK. And I think Angela Merkel was stating in that very famous panel discussion, which triggered the entire, suddenly the speed up of the process, that she met a lesbian couple who have adopted, and that meeting made her change her opinion on same-sex couples adopting children. And then obviously the German Labour Party seized the opportunity and put that law on the agenda of the next parliamentary meeting. And that's something really easy to do in Germany, because we don't have something like a Queen's speech where that has to be on. You just can simply put a motion to vote in Parliament. But then I think for her personally, I think what many people might not actually know, Angela Merkel is a very, very religious person, and she comes from a very religious family background. So I think for her, the marriage itself, that's at least how I would see it, is something, sacred, which she most probably looks more from a religious point of view.
But I just can't get, I really can't get my head around this whole thing around, when religion claims things like marriage and claims it as sacred and all these sort of things, I find it incredibly difficult to just accept and say, oh, that's their way of thinking, because you know what, this is, like I said earlier, this is something that's been around for centuries before religion sort of evolved and became a part of society in the way it is today. And to claim it as being part of religion and saying this is where it originated from is madness, because it isn't true. That's number one, and number two, I don't see how allowing other people to have equal rights in any way or shape or form infringes on your rights.
Absolutely, but coming back to Angela Merkel, what I really respect about her is really 2 points. Is A, that she has the greatness to accept that she's changing an opinion on something quite major, in terms of same-sex couples adopting children, where she had a very different view for many years. So for her to accept that she learned something, and that she feels very different about it. And then also with her background and also the background of her party, to then, as a consequence of that, to remove the whip on that vote, knowingly, if she does that, the motion will definitely pass Parliament, because it was very clear it would pass Parliament, and I'm sure she was extremely aware that would happen. that is basically saying, you know, I still have my views and they are my views and I'm not changing that anymore. But if society has moved on and has changed and wants that change to happen, I will allow it to happen. And I think that really, shows that she is most probably a great leader.
I do give her the credit that she deserves in relation to being able to take that step back and put her views to one side and to not, to not be a blockade to progress and to equality. And I say, for me, I think it's enough that she's done that. And I think people can have their views or have their opinions, but as long as you are doing that in the context of understanding times have changed, there are bigger views than yours, and you shouldn't try to impose those on other people, or it shouldn't be, your views shouldn't stop other people from having the rights that they're entitled to. And if she can recognize that, which she has done, and she's clearly not, she's totally changed her approach. And, hats off to her for doing that.
Absolutely. And look, lots of people, especially in the opposition in Germany, argue that the real reason why she did that is the general election, coming up later this year.
Probably true.
I'm actually, if it wasn't Angela Merkel, I most probably would incline to agree. But then, Angela Merkel has been a chancellor now for a long time, and throughout that period, she has proven again and again and again that she will stick to her opinion regardless of public opinion. The refugee crisis is the perfect example. She stuck to her opinion that we need to help those poor people, totally ignoring dwindling approval rates, major crisis in government. So I seriously believe that is something she just did because she genuinely felt that is the right thing to do, not because there is a general election coming.
Thank you for watching another episode of Blanken Dinner. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. See you soon.